You're listening to an Ono Media podcast.
Good morning, and thanks for joining me for Rise in Crime, your morning caffeine hit all about crime. I'm Mama Jules, and happy St. Patrick's Day. It's my favorite holiday, and I get to spend a few minutes with you all, which makes it even better. So let's dive in. Last week in Hertfordshire, that's a picturesque county in southern England that has rolling hills and historic towns, well, a former soldier was sentenced to life in prison for slaughtering 3 women, 2 of them with a crossbow. Okay, that's horrific enough all on its own, but there's so much more to his barbaric acts than just the crossbow. Let me tell you about 26-year-old Kyle Clifford and his girlfriend of about 18 months, 25-year-old Louise Hunt. The two met on a dating app, him a handsome soldier, like I said, who at one time served in the Queen's Dragoon Guards, but with a bit of a chip on his shoulder. With his haughty attitude, Kyle's time in the Queen's Dragoon Guards didn't last long, so he moved on to a private sector working security while Louise and Kyle dated. And what about Louise? Well, she's beautiful. But when people talked about Louise, it wasn't her beauty they mentioned first. Gentle was the word used repeatedly to describe the dog groomer who worked in a converted outbuilding on her parents' property. Well, in July of 2024, Louise had finally accepted that the relationship, that at times was seasoned with anger and a lot of arrogance, well, she decided it had probably run its course. Her family had helped her understand that Kyle wasn't the man for her. And her family was Louise's world. 3 beautiful daughters born to John Hunt and Carol Hunt. John is well known in England, working as a distinguished BBC horse racing commentator for more than 3 decades. And Carol was his devoted wife who had raised the 3 daughters, Amy, Hannah, and Louise. Carol had warned Louise from nearly the beginning of the relationship. Call it that mother's intuition. But she felt there were signs that Kyle might have a darker side. When Louise finally ended the relationship in late June, it wasn't without stress and emotion. Days after calling it off, Louise crashed her car into a light pole. She was preoccupied and stressed by the roller coaster of emotions between the two. Louise then shared an X post on her X account that read like this: "I admire women who leave. I don't give a F if you left after the first time or the 12th time. I admire that shiz. I don't give a F if people call you dumb for 11 years, but in the 12th year you decided you were done. It takes a lot of strength to break a time. It takes a lot of self-love to choose yourself." Now, obviously, I cleaned that X post up a bit and I actually used some proper English, but what Louise was saying through someone else's post was that she was doing this, leaving the man that had treated her badly. Let me also share one last text between Kyle and Louise, as they really cemented the breakup that had, of course, occurred in person. Louise wrote to Kyle that she loved the wonderful year that they had spent together and that she never wanted animosity to develop between the two. She also encouraged Kyle to take care of himself, focus on his rebuilding. Kyle texted back the following: "Thank you for the clarity, Louise, so we can both start our healing process. I love you so much, and I will for a very long time. I will always be here for you if you ever need me. Please don't hesitate. I wish you all the best, and take care of yourself too." Now, this sounds like it potentially could be a good breakup, right? They're not being hateful. They are committing to maturely carry forward. Unfortunately, Louise was sincere. Kyle was not. Following that text, over the next 13 days, Kyle readied his plans to kill Louise. Kyle visited a local shop. I would kind of equate it to a hardware store in America. He purchased 2 plastic gas cans in one visit and then a long blue coil of rope in another visit. He gathered weapons, a purchased crossbow, and a hunting-styled knife. He then made plans, cross-checking the schedules of Carol, figuring out the horse racing schedules for John, establishing when Louise would be working in the outbuilding grooming dogs and when her sister Hannah would be at a local salon where she worked as a hairstylist. You know what else he was doing? He's back on dating apps. And in just the 13 days after the "we wish each other well" texts, Kyle has gotten himself a new girlfriend. On July 9th of 2024, Kyle is seen at a greenhouse shopping with his parents. During that time, he gets a call from the new girlfriend. He silences the call and she leaves a voicemail. After shopping with his parents, Kyle packs his car with the crossbow, covering the weapon in a white sheet. He gathers the gas cans and the rope. He fills his backpack with supplies like the knife, duct tape, and restraints, all for his carefully laid out plans. And then he heads to Louise's parents' home. All right, you guys, this is not a quiet street. It's the guts or the stupidity or the mental instability that this plan took, but camera footage shows Kyle parallel parking, then getting out. He is dressed all in black, and he doesn't take anything with him. That's because he's scouting his prey. He peeks into the driveway of the Hunt's home to double-check his research, whose cars are parked there. And then he returns to his car and searches on his phone. He's double-checking the horse racing schedule for the day. He's got to see if John's going to be home. And then after a little less than an hour, he exits the car again, this time carrying his backpack. The next camera angle that picks up Kyle is from John and Carol's doorbell cam. Kyle rings and Carol answers the door, and she's shocked as she greets Kyle. He returns the greeting and then says he's just dropping off some of Louise's stuff. Carol politely asks Kyle, "How are you doing?" And he replies, "I'm good, thank you. What's wrong? You look like..." And Carol finishes his sentence by saying, "I've seen a ghost." Kyle then steps into the house, referencing that he had a card for the family. He removes his backpack, pretends to retrieve the card from the inside. Instead, he pulls out a large knife and then stabs Carol repeatedly. Kyle then camps out near her body for roughly 15 minutes. We're presuming he was waiting for her to die, just really being sure. And then when he was potentially assured he can safely leave the home without Carol alerting anyone, Kyle exits and returns to his car to retrieve the crossbow covered in the white sheet. Kyle walks back to the home to set up camp, stalking and waiting for Louise to walk through the back gate and into the garden area. An hour after he killed her mother, Kyle attacks Louise, knocking over items, banging against furniture, with muffled and unmuffled screams escaping from Louise. Neighbors hear the noises, but they dismiss them as roughhousing between young kids. Once Kyle had Louise bound at the ankles and the wrists and gagged at her mouth, he spent the next hour torturing her and raping her. Kyle then exited through the garden area, walked to the dog grooming building. He's trying to find Louise's phone. Using her phone, he texts her dad, John, just to make sure John isn't returning home early. John responds and says he will be at the horse racing event until later in the evening. Kyle then also uses her phone to search online about whether or not if you unplug a smoke detector, does that fully disable it? It seems he's planning to use the gas in the purchased gas cans to burn the home to the ground. Kyle only has a bit of time left before Louise's sister Hannah will be returning to the home from her job at the salon. Hannah had tried to call her mom, but of course her mom isn't answering. So Kyle walks through the Hunt home, closing all of the blinds. Hannah again calls her mom at 6:49 p.m. As she approaches the home, there is still no answer. Kyle arms himself with the crossbow, and he shoots Louise through the back at 6:50 p.m. Less than 30 seconds after killing Louise, Hannah steps into the property through a side door, calling out for her mom, saying, "Hey, I tried to call you." Hannah heads up the stairs, and that's when she sees Kyle. Now this Hannah, she's not a meek one. She begins yelling at Kyle, and Kyle is trying to calm her down as Hannah pulls out her phone again and begins texting her boyfriend Alex for help. She writes to Alex that he should call the police. Kyle grabs her and ties her up with the blue rope and throws her phone to the side. 2 minutes later, Kyle shoots Hannah in the chest with the crossbow. Hurriedly, Kyle gathers his backpack and the crossbow, barely hiding it under the sheet, and he leaves the home. So what do we got here? Louise is raped and murdered. Carol has been stabbed to death, and Hannah is clinging to life. Hannah stumbles to her feet, and through the audio we hear from the front door camera, it is believed that she found the bodies of her mother and her sister. She also then bravely called 999. That's England's version of 911. 6 minutes after she was shot, first responders arrived on scene. Then, within just a few minutes, shortly after 7 p.m., Hannah died from the crossbow wound. Well, Kyle, he's on the run. He pulled off to the side of the road in a lay-by, which I learned is like a pull-off where cars can park temporarily to maybe answer a phone call or look up directions. I don't know if he's trying to get his wits about him. Maybe he was potentially thrown off. He had planned to burn the place, possibly, but that didn't happen, and now he's not sure what to do. Faced with the reality of his actions, he pulls back on the road and heads to Lavender Hills Cemetery. Police are searching for Kyle, warning the public to go nowhere near him. They're saying, just call authorities if you see him or his car. And throughout the night, while holed up at the cemetery, Kyle attempts to create a noose, tying it over a tree branch, which, by the way, would have never held him. He would have not been successful at taking his own life that way. But he never tried that option. He instead decided to shoot himself with the crossbow when he heard and saw police approaching the cemetery. They found him there, injured with an arrow in his chest, and he was taken to the Royal London Hospital. Kyle survived, but he's now permanently paralyzed from the waist down. Now, of course, I'm telling you this horrific murder of 3 innocent women because we have a conclusion. Kyle pled guilty to the murders in January, and last week, he was sentenced to life in prison for killing 3 women and leaving John without 2/3 of his children and his beloved wife. Now, during the sentencing, we learned more about Kyle and his depraved state of mind. The court presented notes written by Kyle on his phone app in those few days just prior to the killings. The judge described the notes as dripping with self-pity. He detailed his plans for the killings and also the plan to take his own life after the killings. The court also described that Kyle had been cheating on Louise with 2 other women during the tortured relationship. The phone evidence revealed he had misogynistic material that often reflected violent acts toward women. John took the opportunity to speak directly to Kyle at the sentencing. He said the following: "I so wish to deliver these words eye to eye, Kyle. The screams of hell, Kyle. I can hear them faintly now. They're going to roll the red carpet out for you." Now, those details from both Louise's phone and Kyle's phone that were shared in court, well, there's one more piece of information I want you to know. In one of her notes on her phone, Louise reminded herself to not return to Kyle if she ever was feeling sad. She wrote this note: "When you're sad, look. His brother is in prison. He still sees him every other week and never said what he did was horrendous. His family is a mess. Racist comments. Says he doesn't like transgenders. He has road rage. He uses belittling language. Tells me he has a higher IQ than all of my family. Would tell me all the violent acts his brother and dad would do." Oh my gosh, you guys, what a heartbreaking note that she had in her phone. No wonder her mother was having mother's intuition about this guy dating her daughter. So let's figure some things out. Why was his brother in prison? Well, it seems in 2018, Bradley Clifford was 23 years old when he mowed down an 18-year-old and a 19-year-old who were driving a moped. And I say mowed down because he purposely ran them over after they threw a beer bottle at his prized Ford Mustang while in the parking lot of a bar. He then chased the moped for 20 minutes before smashing into the moped, which flung the two men to the side of the road. Bradley then beat one of them to death, for which he received a life sentence in prison. And by the way, the damage to his prized Ford Mustang was superficial. He murdered a man for that, and Kyle murdered 3 women because he couldn't have Louise. Now, the 3 women were roundly described as hardworking and generous, kind and quiet. A neighbor called them beautiful souls. John has earned deep respect in the racing community over the last year. He continued to work and dedicate himself to the profession he loved, despite feeling deep heartache and sorrow. Our kindest sentiments of peace to John and Amy. Let me know what you think of this case. Now to this case that has been recommended over and over again for me to cover. It's been 1 month since 14-year-old Emily Pike was found murdered in Arizona, and we have no idea who took the life of the troubled San Carlos Apache teen. Emily had previously lived on the San Carlos Apache reservation with her family, but for a couple of years she had entered a group home in Mesa. And when I say troubled to describe Emily, I don't want you to get the wrong idea. I don't want us to assign these concepts to Emily. By all reports, Emily is quiet. She's smart. She loves the color pink, and she's very soft-spoken. And she's been said to be quick to smile. Authorities are being quiet about why she was living in the group home, or even if this was her first time in a foster care situation. But you guys, this is very typical of the Native American culture. All people are reluctant to share details, the Native Americans and law enforcement. And I don't know what the constant conflict is between law enforcement and Native Americans. It just doesn't seem to function correctly. And I also don't want to theorize why she was in the group home. Now, I don't want us to jump to the conclusion that she is there because of bad behavior on her part. In fact, it seems she was having emotional issues or maybe some mental health crisis of some sort. It quite possibly could be that the group home was a safer option for her. And honestly, sometimes the streets seem safer to someone who's 14 years old. Now, this particular group home, it doesn't have the greatest of reputations. Over the last 3 years, Mesa police had responded to more than 80 calls for missing persons from that group home. Teens who had fled the home and were now on the streets. Now, some were repeat calls, teens who had been returned to the group home and then fled again. And Emily's one of those. She's a repeat person. She had run away from the home 4 times, 3 of which ended up being reported as a missing person call. Now, 2 of the runaway times were in 2023. And earlier this year in 2025, Emily had fled the home and then been returned by law enforcement. But on January 27th, she fled again, and she never returned. 17 days later, her body was found on Valentine's Day in a wooded area near Globe, Arizona, off US 60 North Highway. Okay, that's 100 miles from the group home. Someone who was walking nearby saw some full-looking garbage bags and decided to call the Gila County Sheriff's Office. Emily had been dismembered and placed in multiple trash bags. Now, the cause of death has not been released by the medical examiner's office, but due to some leaked information in the case, we now know that Emily's head and torso were found in one bag, her legs in another bag, and her arms and hands have yet to be found. And Emily's mother, who said she was not informed that Emily was missing until a week after she left the group home, well, she is telling the New York Post that law enforcement has 3 suspects. But law enforcement isn't saying they have suspects. Now, the case is being investigated by Gila County and also the Bureau of Indian Affairs with the aid of the FBI. ABC 15 is reporting, as of Friday, that surveillance footage has been obtained in her disappearance, and they are indicating it may help solve the case. Also late last week, a small protest was held in Cathedral City demanding justice for Emily. One of the protesters, Zelaya Sanchez, told a local newspaper that Emily's death and all other Indigenous crime is, quote, just catastrophic and really awful to think about. Now, a local artist has painted a beautiful and massive mural in tribute to Emily on a water tower in San Carlos. And remember that group home? Well, calls for an investigation into the practices of that home have now surfaced, and they've become really quite loud. True Crime Arizona's Brianna Whitney held a Q&A with the group home manager. We learned from that interview that the group home's protocol is to report all children missing if they run away. The manager also clarifies that all the children who have been reported missing have been accounted for, but they might not have been returned to the group home. The manager says they followed all protocols on the day Emily went missing, January 27th, and that Mesa PD was called immediately. But remember, her mother is saying they did not receive a phone call until a week later. Now, the manager said she has been interviewed by law enforcement about Emily's death. She then said the home has been open for 24 years and that they have an amazing and successful business. However, rumors are circulating online that the home is not properly licensed, and an investigation has been opened by the Department of Child Services in regards to those claims. So what's clear here? Emily was brutalized. More than just the Native American community are getting involved. And you guys, that's good. And practices are being evaluated. That's also good. What's not clear? Who did this? The Gila County PD are asking for help. If you know anything, you are encouraged to call. I will keep you updated on this case. Let me know what you think. Now, I can't bring you this episode without playing for you the University of Idaho 911 call that was released on multiple media outlets just about 3 or 4 days ago. So let's go through this efficiently. Here, I want you to listen to the audio first, and you might need to play the audio a couple of times. It's a little difficult and a little chaotic, but it'll be worth it.
11:55 a.m. 42 seconds, November 13, 2022.
911 location of your emergency.
Hi, something is happening. Something's happened in our house. We don't know what.
What is the address of the emergency?
1122.
What is the rest of the address?
Oh, Kings Road.
Okay. And is that a house or an apartment?
It's a house.
Can you repeat the address to make sure that I have it right?
I'll talk to you guys. We live at the White, so we're next to them.
I need someone to repeat the address for verification.
The address, 1122 King Road.
And what's the phone number that you're calling from?
What's your phone number?
And tell me exactly what's going on.
One of the roommates has passed out, and she was drunk last night, and she's not waking up.
Okay.
Oh, and they saw some man in their house last night. Yeah. Hi, this is.
And are you with the patient? Okay, I need someone to keep the phone, stop passing it around.
Can I just tell you what happened pretty much?
What is going on currently? Is someone passed out right now?
I don't really know, but pretty much at 4 a.m.
Okay, I need to know what's going on right now if someone is passed out. Can you find that out?
Yeah, I'll come. Come on, Bethany, we gotta go check. But we have to. Is he passed out? She's not waking up.
Okay, one moment. I'm getting help started that way.
Okay, thank you.
How old is she?
She's 20.
20, you said?
Yes, 20. Here's one.
Okay.
Hello? Hello?
Okay, I need someone to stop passing the phone around because I've talked to 4 different people.
Okay, sorry, they just gave me the phone.
Is she breathing?
Hello?
Is she breathing?
No.
Okay.
You need to talk to them, okay? I can't talk to them. I need you to talk to them.
Hello.
Okay. I've already sent the ambulance and law enforcement. Stay on the line. If there is a defibrillator available, send someone to get it now and tell me when you have it.
Say that again. There's a police here right now.
Okay. If there's a defibrillator available, send someone to get it now and tell me when you have it.
We don't have one. I think yes. Do you have a defibrillator? Yes, you have one.
Are you talking to the officer?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to let you go since he's there with you and can help you.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Okay.
11:59 a.m. 49 2nd, November 13, 2022.
Okay, now that you have listened, let's understand a few things. This call was made outside of the home when presumably Bethany, one of the surviving roommates, calls 911. She is outside with neighbors and Hunter, okay, that's Ethan's best friend, and Dylan, the other surviving roommate, and we think it's Bethany. She seems to still be unsure of what has occurred inside the home. She starts the call. She's the originator. She hands the phone to a neighbor who is also a friend of the whole entire apartment, and then she takes the phone back. It then seems Hunter enters the home. She follows while talking to the dispatcher. You hear Hunter in the background say, "Xana." Then he must discover the dead bodies of Xana and Ethan. Hunter then can be heard in the background saying, "Get out, get out, get out." So they exit the home, or at least they go to the ground level of the home. They're not in the bedroom with Xana and Ethan. Their dead bodies are in there with presumably tons of blood. Hunter then takes the cell phone. He talks to the dispatcher. Then presumably Bethany takes the phone back. Okay, a few things here. So many people are dragging this dispatcher. I want you to keep something in mind. Her job is to save the life of the person who she only understands at first is unconscious. Then, when Hunter says the person isn't breathing, she tries to take measures to get that person breathing again. She knows nothing further than a person isn't breathing. She doesn't know there's blood. She doesn't know there is more than one person potentially dead. Now, could she have been softer? Sure. But she has a job to do with very limited information. And feel free to disagree with me. I won't even be frustrated with you if you do. I just want us to try to frame the knowledge that the dispatcher is working with. Secondly, Hunter knows. He knows that they are dead once he enters the room after saying, "Xana." He doesn't say it out loud, but he tells everyone to get out, get out. If he thought he could save them, I think he would have tried. Again, you can disagree with me, but I believe that's what happened there. Third, the friend admits they were all drinking and possibly using drugs the night before. It's right at the beginning of the call. We need to remember this as we try to decipher the actions of the 2 surviving roommates, as well as the actions of those that were murdered on that morning. And then fourth, I'm not sure the audio of the 911 call helps the state that much. A jury might perceive the surviving roommates' actions as, so chaotic and potentially drug or alcohol fueled. How can you believe that Dylan saw a bushy-eyed dude? Again, you can disagree with me if you want. I'm not certain about the jury. We're going to just have to kind of see how that all plays out. But I'm not sure this is a slam dunk audio for the state. I want you to tell me what you think in the comments. You can disagree with me or agree with me, or maybe you deciphered something more than the 4 things that I brought out of the 911 call. Just let me know. Now to the comments from last week's episode, the one that happened on Thursday. First, to the funniest comment of the week. Haley said she refers to Skibicki, the serial killer from Winnipeg, as Skibbity Toilet. And for those who don't know, that's currently the insult of all insults. Okay, wait, it might not be the insult of all insults, because doesn't it have to have Ohio in there too to be the insult of all insults? I mean, I turned 52 today, so I don't really have the hippest of name calling in my vernacular. But isn't the worst insult Skibbity Ohio Toilet? But whatever it is, that comment was hilarious, Haley. Go ahead and refer to him as Skibbity Toilet. And Lil Dev lived in Winnipeg, and they think there are more serial killers in that area. Let's start a PI firm and find them. Are y'all in? Let's go get those serial killers. And then to Madeline. I'll look into Janine Bott. You said she's your childhood best friend's sister, and she's still missing. DM me the information about her. Let's see what's going on there. And finally to Leah. Thanks for listening from Ireland. I love when I find out people listening from Australia and Israel and Ireland, all over the place, Mexico. It's so good to hear from you guys. All right, that's your St. Patrick's Monday episode of Rise and Crime. Thank you for all of the case suggestions. The first one and the second one were both suggested by multiple people, so I appreciate that. Of course, I want to cover what you want to listen to. And please share this episode with a friend if you loved it. And as always, we love 5-star reviews and comments here at Ono Media, and like and follow us on all of our social media accounts. That's Murder with My Husband, Into the Dark, and of course, Rise and Crime. You can join me again on Thursday for more morning crime news. I'm Mama Jules, and keep safe out there.